Jai Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnabad Paramahans Parivrajacharya Status Smad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Sri Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Grantaraj Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chai Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Devotees, this morning we are reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Madhya Lila chapter 16. The Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. And we will begin by reading verse 82. E mata pratyabda aise, godera bhaktagana, prabhu sange rahikare, yatra darashana. Every year, the devotees of Bengal would come and stay with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the Ratha Yatra festival. Tara Madhye, ye, Varshe Achaye Vishesha, Vistaria Age Taha, Kahiba Nishesha. Whatever happened during those years that is worth noting shall be described later. Later in Madhya Lila particularly, and Madhya Lila more, also Antya Lila. 84. E mata Mahaprabhur Charivatsara Gela Dakshina Yana Asite Dvaivatsara Lagila. Mahaprabhu passed 4 years. He spent the first 2 years on his tour in South India, 85. Aradui Vatsara Chahe, Vrindavana Yaite, Ramananda Hate Prabhu, Na Pare Chalite. The other 2 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan, but he could not leave Jagannath Puri because of Ramananda Roy's tricks. Hare Krishna. There is room for tricks in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, to some degree, not too many. Panchama Vatsare Gaudir, Bhaktagana Aila, Rathadeki Narahila, Gaudire Chalila. During the 5th year, the devotees from Bengal came to see the Ratha Yatra festival. After seeing it, they did not stay, but returned to Bengal. Because that festival, they'd normally come for the whole rainy season, 4 months, plus or minus, which would end, Ratha Yatra generally is in June, and it's like the middle of the rainy season. And they'd normally stay on, summer ends in India, it's like May, end of May. It's really quite warm. But then June is the rainy season, traditionally. June, July, August, is rainy season. September, it starts switching over to dry season, like autumn. So, but that year, the devotees came for Ratha Yatra, means like they would not have come in the actual summer, just after the summer when the rain begins, because then it cools down. So then Ratha Yatra sometime in May, could possibly be early July, and then they went back. So maybe they stayed a month or so. It was unusual. 87. Tabe Prabhu Sarvabhauma Ramanandastane Alingana Karikahe Madhura Vachane. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed a proposal before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy. He embraced them and spoke sweet words. 88. Bahuta utkanta mora, yaite Vrindavan, tomara hate dui vatsar, nakailun gamana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my desire to go to Vrindavan has very much increased. Because of your tricks, I have not been able to go there for the past 2 years. So they're both being tricky. Tricks like, just wait another, month. The weather will be better, or something like that. This sort of trick. Yeah. Avashya chaliba dunhe, karaha samati, toma dunha, vina mora, nahi anyagati. This time I must go. Will you please give me permission? Save for you too, I have no other resort. This is Lord Chaitanya speaking. Yes, so It's really... Okay, let's just read another couple of verses. Godadeshe hayamora, dui samashraya, janani janavi a, dui dayamaya. In Bengal I have two shelters, my mother and the river Ganges. Both of them are very merciful. Godadesha dia yaba, tansaba dekia, tumi dunhe agya deha, parasana hana. I shall go to Vrindavan through Bengal and see both my mother and the river Ganges. Now, would you too be pleased to give me permission? Because, if you know the geography a bit, you would know that Vrindavan, well, from your side, if you're looking at a map from your side, then how would you see it? Puri is over here, right? And Vrindavan's up here. You go across. But Bengal is over here. So it's a detour. It's a significant detour. Just from Puri to Vrindavan, you're looking at about a couple of 1,000 kilometers. And up through Bengal, up to Calcutta's 500, and then another 120 or something up to Navadweep, and then across, adding must be another 500 kilometers or something to see his mother and the river Ganges. But you know what's very interesting here? Very interesting is the etiquette. The etiquette. Will you too be pleased to give me permission? Certainly not, I'm just going. Yeah, this is etiquette. And etiquette is not just a matter of just, doing something which is, what would you say, just sort of socially, it's not just some sort of abstract social rules, etiquette. Etiquette, ultimately the Sanskrit term is sad-achar. Sad-achar means etiquette. Sad means eternal, and achar means activities. So sadachar then means you're performing activities which are, how would you say, that activities which are normal in the eternal way of life, means in the spiritual world. Sadachar, in other words, means how the devotees in the spiritual world conduct themselves. And you don't get, just like, in simple terms, you don't just get gross people in the spiritual world. You don't get them. The people have the highest character, of course, the very highest character in all respects. So they really know how to conduct themselves, and not just know how, but to them it's natural just to act in very nice ways, very wonderful ways, but very naturally. Not that they have to think, what should I do here? Yeah, what would be the right thing, or something to that effect. It just flows from their hearts, because that's what they are. Whereas in the material world, We have to be careful about what we do, because our hearts have, some undesirable elements in them. And if we just do what our heart tells us to do, sometimes we will rarely make some mistake. Sometimes, maybe, not just sometimes too. So, say the wrong thing and offend some apparat, and just become our own worst enemies in the name of just letting it all hang out. There's a saying, to put your foot in your mouth. Have you heard that before? Yeah, put your foot in your mouth. Means say really say the wrong thing. And there's a famous disease in New Zealand. It's very famous because there they have loads and loads of animals for commercial purposes. But, you get it around. There's a disease called foot and mouth disease. Have you heard of it? Anyway, there's a disease. And sometimes in devotee company, we call it foot in mouth disease. And it's really like that. Put your foot in your mouth. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Foot and mouth disease. So yeah, you say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing. But Krishna consciousness means, of course, we have to learn, like so many things we have to learn, so many things which are natural and just come naturally to pure souls, pure devotees of the Lord, just their natural inclinations are just glorious and wonderful and perfect behavior. But for people like us, coming from material life and having been exposed to all sorts of wrong things and having all sorts of wrong habits like that, so we have to very consciously make points of, in different situations, what should I do here? And then another situation different. Well, so what would be appropriate here? We do need to be careful, particularly in sensitive situations, particularly when we are in the company of, respectable seniors like this. Oh yeah. In the company of the spiritual master, you really have to be more careful. Otherwise, what in one situation with someone else, it may be aparad, which is never good, but it might not be the end of the world. But if we do some nonsense like that with the spiritual master, or just some much more senior devotee, then it becomes more serious, becomes maha-aparad. I'm reading His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj's book, and I just passed the point now where the Prabhupada is trying to purchase the land in Juhu. I don't know if you have read that book. You should read it. It's amazing. It's just amazing what they went through to get the land. So this man, Mr. Nair, he's a wealthy Hindu gentleman, well known in Bombay, but he really tried to cheat Srila Prabhupada. So this is maha-aparad. It's not just sort of regular aparad, which is bad enough, but it's real maha aparad. And Giriraj Maharaj is writing there, and he says that, this whole thing back and forth is going on. And one day he went out into the streets to do some book distribution, and there was they have these little small billboards for what's in the newspaper when they're trying to sell the papers. And Prabhupada saw Mr. Nair dead. And he looked at it and he thought, what is this? Could it be? And then he looked and he saw it is. So they quickly informed Prabhupada, who was elsewhere in another country. And Prabhupada, when he heard that, Prabhupada went like this. Sort of. And actually, I forget the exact wording he used, but something like, this is proof Krishna is God. Something along those lines. But my point here is that if we do aparad, particularly if you do aparad, maha aparad, oh, Krishna, you don't know what's going to come down on your head. Yeah. Yeah, you don't know, but something will. So this is so nice. This is Lord Chaitanya. And he knows, of course he knows, he's senior to them. He's senior to them. They are his disciples, effectively, and they worship him. They worship Lord Chaitanya. But still, Lord Chaitanya, his behavior is so nice that he asks them for permission to go to Vrindavan. Because previously, well, we mentioned they were trying to avoid it with their little clever excuses and things. So that's something we can remember. We should remember. Because otherwise, it is, I would say, it's actually inevitable. If we don't develop a habit of thinking like this, it's actually inevitable that we are going to put our foot in it quite badly from time to time. And of course, it may be a learning experience, that's helpful, but there'll be some pain. There'll be some pain involved. And who wants pain? Particularly if you don't need it, particularly if you can avoid it. 92. Shuniya Prabhura Vani Mane Vicharaya Prabhu Sane Atihata Kabu Bala Naya. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy heard these words, they began to consider. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think they began to consider without looking at? There's an offer. Any other offers? Considering etiquette and, proper behavior. So when they heard these words, they began to consider that it was not at all good that they had played so many tricks on the Lord. Yeah, because he's the Lord. And they're thinking, we want his association and let's, wheel and deal a bit. But actually, they they interfered with Lord Chaitanya and what he really wanted to do. 93. Dunhe kahe ebe varsha, chalite nariba, Vijaya Dashami Aile Avashya Chaliba. They both said, now that the rainy season is here, it will be difficult for you to travel. It is better to wait for Vijay Dashami before departing for Vrindavan. Is it another trick? Not really in this case. Anande Mahaprabhu Varsha Kaila Samadana Vijaya Dashami Dine Karila Payana. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to thus receive their permission. You know, there's another famous incident after the Battle of Kurukshetra. Battle of Kurukshetra, you know, Lord Krishna is living in Dwaraka, west coast, Gujarat. Battle of Kurukshetra is north central, north of Delhi, sort of straight up, a couple of 100 kilometers. So the battle was there. Then Lord Krishna came down to Hastinapur. Well, everyone came down to Hastinapur because that's where the Pandavas were living. And now it's the throne of the kingdom of the whole world. So they all came down with Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna stayed for some days. And then Lord Krishna asked Yudhisthira, he asked Kunti, you know, she's the senior, can I go, please, back home to Dwaraka? And they wouldn't let him. He had to stay for, if I remember correctly, a month. Yeah, and then, but he did, he waited until they gave permission. This is nice. You know, you might think it's just a formality. Would you please give me permission to go somewhere? That the devotees would just say, sure. But they don't always. Sometimes they say, well, no. Please wait. So that's what happened in that case. So he waited until the rainy season passed, and when the day of Vijay Dashami arrived, he departed for Vrindavan. Vijay Dashami, is that in Kartik? Or is it just a few days before Kartik? Anyway, it's right around Kartik time. I have a feeling it's Dashami. I think it's like 4 days or so before the beginning of Kartik. And that Kartik means the autumn season. It's dry and it's cooler, relatively cooler. 95. The Lord collected whatever remnants of food were left by Lord Jagannath. He also took remnants of the Lord's Kadara ointment, sandalwood, and ropes with him. Kadara. Are you familiar with Kadara, ladies? I mean, you know what Anjan is, I'm sure. You know what Anjan is, right? And it's, what's it called now? Begins with K usually. Kajal. But do you know Kadara? That's probably good, actually. That you're not too expert in all sorts of cosmetics and all that. But it's the Lord's remnants of Kadara and ointment, sandalwood, and ropes with him. Jagannathe Agyamagi Prabhate Chalila Udiya Bhakta Gana Sange Pache Chali Aila. After taking Lord Jagannath's permission early in the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed, and all the devotees of Orissa began following him because he's Lord Chaitanya. So they literally, just the whole town went. Udiya Bhaktagana. Udiya Bhaktagane Prabhu Yatne Nivarila Nijagana Sange Prabhu Bhavani Pura Ayala. With great care, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forbade the Orissan devotees to follow him. Then, accompanied by his personal associates, he first went to Bhavanipur. And Prabhupada says, one goes through Bhavanipur before reaching a well-known place called Jankadepur or Janaki Devi Pura. 98. Ramananda Ayala Pache Dalaya Chadia Vaninatha Basu Prasad. Vaninatha Bahu Prasada Dila Patan. After Lord Chaitanya reached Bhavanipur, Ramananda Roy arrived on his palanquin, and Vaninath Roy had a large quantity of prasadam sent to the Lord. Prasada Bojana Kari Tataya Rahila Pratakali Chali Prabhu Bhuvaneshwar Oila. After taking prasadam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained there for the night. Early in the morning he began walking, and finally he reached Bhuvaneshwar. So it's a bit of a zigzag course he's taking. But this place, Janakipur, is, it's not too far along from Puri in the direction of Bhuvaneshwar. Bhuvaneshwar is like 100 kilometers or something by road. 100. Katake Asiya Kaila Gopala Darashana Swapneshvara Vipra Kaila Prabhura Nimantrana. After reaching the city of Katak, so now he's turned to the north, he saw the temple of Gopal, and a Brahmin there named Swapneshvara invited the Lord to eat. Swapna. Swapna means, a dream, a dream. 101. Ramananda Raya Sabha Gane Nimantrila Bahira Udyane Asi Prabhu Vasa Kaila. Ramananda Roy invited all the others for their meals, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his resting place in a garden outside the temple. 102. Bhikshakari Bakula Tale Karila Vishrama Prataparudra Tani Raya Karila Payana. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking rest beneath a bakul tree, Ramananda Roy immediately went to Maharaj Prataparudra. So they are in Katak, which is towards the coast. Looking from your side, it's up. The Lord went this way to Bhuvaneshwar. Now he's going up. Katak is near the coast, isn't it? Was it on the coast? Anyway, one way or the other, it's not far from the coast at least. And it was the capital. So Prataparudra, as king, was based a lot of the time in Katak. So Ramananda Roy, who's with Lord Chaitanya, goes and informs Prataparudra. Shuni Anandita Raja Ati Shigra Aila Prabhu Deki Dandavat Bhumete Padila. The king was very happy to hear the news, and he hastily went there. Upon seeing the Lord, he fell flat to offer him obeisances. Puna ute, puna pade, pranaya vivala, stuti kare, pulakanga, pade ashru jala. Wow. Being overwhelmed with love, the Lord again and again excuse me. Being overwhelmed with love, the king again and again got up and fell down. When he offered prayers, his whole body shivered, and tears fell from his eyes. Tanra Bhakti Deki Prabhur, Tushna Hailamana, Uti Mahaprabhu Tanre, Kaila Alingana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to see the devotion of the king, and he therefore stood up and embraced him. Lord Chaitanya embraced Maharaj Prataparudra. This is interesting, isn't it? Because if you're familiar with the story, you'd know that not very long before, just some time before, Lord Chaitanya would not even meet the king. In fact, what to speak of not even meet the king. When the devotees, it was actually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was requesting him to meet the king, because he said he's a great devotee, which was very true. When Sarvabhauma was kind of mildly encouraging or pushing the Lord, come and meet with him, he's a really nice devotee, Lord Chaitanya told him, you ask me one more time and you will never see me again. Because he's a king. Means he's a materialist, basically. A pounds, shillings, and pence man, Prabhupada says. Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya took it as an insult, that the idea that he should meet with the king. But the king was a great devotee, and we read, I remember when I was last here, we read how during the Rath Yatra, when the cart stopped on the way, Lord Chaitanya, tired from dancing and chanting and dancing in the most dramatic ways, he went and lay down in one of the gardens. Was it? Okay, maybe. Can't remember. So he lay down, maybe in the Nandanandan, in one of the gardens. And Maharaj Prataparudra came there dressed as an ordinary person, just some ordinary, like plain white cloth, cheap cloth. And he recited the prayers of the gopis to Lord Krishna from the Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya was so extremely pleased. So now that, things have changed to this point, that Lord Chaitanya, when he meets the king and sees what a nice devotee, Lord Chaitanya stood up and embraced him. It's amazing. Very amazing. 106. Puna stuti kari raja, karaye pranama, Prabhu kripa ashrute tanra, deha hoila snana. When the Lord embraced the king again and again offered prayers and obeisances. In this way, the Lord's mercy brought tears from the king, and the Lord's body was bathed with these tears. 107. Sustakari Ramananda, Rajare Vasaila, Kaya Mano Vakye Prabhu, Tanre Kripa Kaila. Finally, Ramananda Roy pacified the king and made him sit down. The Lord bestowed mercy upon him through his body, mind, and words. Aiche Tanre Kripa. Aiche Tanhare Kripa. Kaila Gora Roy. Prataparuja Santrata Namahaile Yaya. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed such mercy to the king that from that day on, the Lord became known as Prataparudra Santrata, the deliverer of Maharaj Prataparudra. Rajapatra Ganakaila Prabhura Vandana Rajare Vidya Dila Shachira Nandana. All the governmental officers also paid their respects to the Lord, and finally the king and his men were bade farewell by the son of Mother Sachi. Bahire Asiraja Agya Patra Leka Ila Nijaraje Yata Vishai Tahare Pataila. The king then went outside and had orders written down and sent to the government servants within his kingdom. Grame Nutana Avasa Kariba Panchasata Navya Grihe Samagre Bariba. His orders read, in every village you should construct new residences, and in 5 or 7 new houses you should store all kinds of food. Apani Prabhuke Lana Tahan Utariba Ratri Diba Vetra Haste Sevaya Rahiba. You should personally take the Lord to these newly constructed houses. Day and night, you should engage in his service with a stick in your hands. Okay. Dui Mahapatra Hari Chandana Mardraja Tanre Agya Dila Raja Kariha Sarvakaya. The Lord ordered 2 respectable officers named Harichandran and Mardaraja to do whatever was necessary to carry out these orders. Okay. So we start on verse 114, 115. Any comments or questions? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Did you find out who's cooking this evening? Is it? Sri Krishna Chaitanya. we need in terms of space. It's just